Hi everybody, this is Professor Quinn, and I'm going to do a quick recording here to give you an idea about the narrative arc. Now you can go onto YouTube. You can also search this title under a quick Google search, and know that the experiences you have with narratives happen all the time in your life, and people in your family tell you stories. Especially if you have a sister like mine who's really long-winded. She'll tell you a story that takes about 45 minutes to get to from beginning to end. Within the story, usually when we tell each other stories, there's a natural narrative arc that happens to most stories. And so I wanted to show you in this very simplistic graphic, because obviously I can't draw whatsoever, but I wanted to show you kind of what that looks like, and hopefully this will help you build the narrative arc in your workplace narrative. So generally speaking, what tends to happen in most narratives is that they are in chronological order. Thus, the beginning of your story is the beginning of the event, the crisis, the conflict, and then you build up momentum through details. And you'll notice in the discussions this week, I've mentioned to a couple of students that you may be using this term called vignettes. It's French for little stories, and so oftentimes your narrative is not just one event, but it's a string of events that bring you to a grander conclusion. So you don't have to just talk about one event with your boss if you're having issues with negative experiences with a supervisor. So you can talk about a couple of different instances that built up your stress or frustration that end up leading to a confrontation or the important meeting with the powers that be. So generally speaking, stories again are told in chronological order, beginning with the first event and moving forward in time to the most recent end event, or end of the situation. Let me just sort of play around with that just a little bit. End of event's fine. As you move forward in time, you're building up tension because readers are going to wonder, well, if your boss is so awful, when you're going to have this confrontation, so a little bit of anxiety and tension, or maybe not anxiety so much, but anticipation in your readers is not a bad thing. You'll notice as the writing builds, it looks like you're kind of going up a mountain. Okay, so that's the tension, that's the detailing. You're coming to an important point. Usually this happens 3/4 of the way through a traditional story. Not all stories work this way, but see if this fits your situation. You get toward the end and you come up to this event, and the terms are used interchangeably, either the crux or the climax, and that is the final straw. That's the meeting with your boss. That's say you're in basic and you are having significant issues with a certain obstacle course, but you know you had to get through this to pass basic, or you had to get your mile time down to under a certain minutes per mile. Having that confrontation with your boss, or passing the mile mark or the obstacle course mark in the appropriate time, shows crux or climax. Okay, and you have to have that for the story to work seamlessly. But the story doesn't end right there. There has to be some sort of resolution, and you notice it's a very sort of quick drop-off. So your story's almost done, but you don't want to end on that event. That tends to be where readers can get frustrated. They want to know how you process that event, how you explain it. What do you do now? So that's that resolution. Think about it in this way. If you watch The Walking Dead, I don't know if all of you watch The Walking Dead, but some of you may. The end of last season, a lot of viewers got very upset because, and I'm not giving much away, but the heroes of the situation, I guess you maybe call them the anti-hero heroes, but they are confronted with another group, and they're surrounded. There's maybe 10 of the familiar group led by Rick, and they're surrounded by a bunch of bad people, maybe 50 people. There's no way to escape, and the lead bad guy has a bat, like a studded bat, and he's kind of like swinging it around, and all of the heroes are sort of just kneeling in front of him, and the indication is he's going to knock somebody off, and that the season ends. And so what happens is we don't get to the crux or the climax. The season actually ends. I'm going to draw it in here. Let's see if I can draw it in here. The season ends for The Walking Dead. I'll do it in red, kind of right here. He's about to swing the bat, but he doesn't actually do it. You don't know what happens, or he does it, but you don't see who gets hit. Seeing who gets hit is the crux or the climax. I know that's kind of a gruesome example, but it's the one that came to mind. The resolution would be what happens to the heroes and what do they do with that information? Do they regroup? Do they go their separate ways? How do they process the loss of people that become family to them? So that's why I think viewers were really upset. And so when you're thinking about your own writing, your own workplace narratives, it's not going to be as dramatic as The Walking Dead, obviously. And you don't always have to do it in a way that you're telling a story from beginning to end. For example, there are plenty of stories that, excuse me, that aren't told in sequence, but are told in order of importance. So the vignettes that you use don't have to be chronological. It doesn't have to be from the least recent to the most recent, but it could be in order of your building up tension by showing different examples of your dictator boss, right? Storytellers can do that all the time. You see this in movies like Memento or in Pulp Fiction, where they'll jump around from scene to scene and it's not chronological, but there's a story to be told in the restructuring of time. You can do that in your workplace narrative, so you have lots of options, but the tried and true method really is sticking to the beginning of the event, moving forward in time, coming up to the big event of the confrontation, of the tackling of the challenge, and then a paragraph in closing, that's your resolution. So think about structuring your story as a story or as a series of smaller stories, vignettes, and see what happens. Note that when you post this on Sunday, I'm going to go back in and give everybody feedback. And when you post on Sunday, it's just a draft. You're not getting graded on any of this yet. So post whatever you have. The more full draft you have, the better off, the better position you're going to be in, because you'll have more feedback. And a reader like me will be able to see the story, the event in its entirety. And that will help you in finalizing the text as we move forward into weeks 2 and 3. Reach out if you have any questions, and I'll see you guys online.